Is the Denver running game one to avoid this season? What NFC West receiver continues to be unfairly ignored in drafts? And what tight end on a new team is turning heads in practice? Plus, a $250,000 high-stakes fantasy football winner, Jason Steeves, sits in for Dave Gerzak tonight to talk about being perennially successful in Dynasty leagues, how you should handle Julian Edelman in drafts, and much more. We've got a great show for you. Jason Steeves is here. I'm Eric Balkman. Stick around. Your extra special Eric Balkman Show edition of the High Stakes Fantasy Football Hour starts now.
Live from the WRST radio studios in beautiful Oshkosh, Wisconsin, and heard around the world on the WRST stream. It's the Eric Balkman Show.
Thanks so much, Rob. Greetings and salutations, all of you Balkaholics and Gerzak addicts. Welcome to the latest episode of the High Stakes Fantasy Football Hour presented by myffpc.com. I'm your slightly above average host, Eric Balkman. My normal co-host is the patron saint of fantasy football, the Dizzle Dave Gerzak. However, sitting in for him tonight is a highly accomplished FFPC player who has been playing high stakes fantasy football for 15 plus years. He is a former bare knuckle challenge champ. He is a former off the grid challenge champ, and he is a world auction champion. His winnings have totaled close to $250,000 in his career, a 7-time FFPC Dynasty and Footballguys League winner. Please welcome my co-host for the evening, Mr. Jason Steeves. Jason, thanks so much for hanging out with me tonight, man. I really appreciate it.
Oh, no worries. Yeah, thanks for having me, Eric.
This is you are the pride of Canada coming on the show tonight. We're expecting you to class up the joint, given how me and Dave normally trash the place. But the bar is set so low, but you are going to sky over it tonight.
Thank you very much. Yeah, we'll try to do our best.
Exactly. Yes. Coming up on tonight's show, we'll talk about the fantasy impact of the rookie rushers in Washington and Cleveland. Tell you which sophomore tight end we prefer between O.J. Howard and David Njoku, plus much, much, much more. Shout out to the chat room right now. Feel free to post any questions you may have for us in there. If you want to connect with us on Twitter, the show is at HSFF Hour. I am at Eric Balkman. You can connect on our Facebook page, facebook.com/HSFF Hour. 347-426-3682 is the number to reach us. That's 347-GAME-OVA. High-stakes fantasy football at gmail.com is the inbox that our producer and mutual friend Rob and our audio engineer Bryce are monitoring tonight. And if you have any questions for me, for Jason, for both of us, they will do their best to get those questions to us in the fantasy feedback segment coming up later on in the show. Reminder, tomorrow it's a special weekend here. The Footballguys early bird promotion expires Saturday, June 30th. As long as you register for a Footballguys draft tomorrow or by tomorrow and draft it before July 15th, you'll get a free $35 FFPC team credit. You can do that up to 3 times, so make sure you're taking advantage of that. Remember, if you buy 3 Footballguys teams, you get a $50 discount on the bundle as well. That expires tomorrow, so make sure you're taking advantage of that before it goes bye-bye. Room discounts at Planet Hollywood and $10 Week 1 NFL viewing for any Caesars property, be it a restaurant, a sportsbook, a lounge, whatever you want. Check that out at myffpc.com if you are planning on partying and drafting out with us in Vegas, which I highly recommend. Make sure you are getting it at a discount. Register for best ball drafts starting at $35 now, and Dynasty startups also available, all at myffpc.com. Jason, to open things up before we talk about all your fantasy football accomplishments, how you're prepping for pros versus Joes, and all the other stuff we're going to get to tonight when we pick your brain. Tell the listeners what you do for a living.
Actually, yeah, I own a motorbike shop here in Calgary. We do actually get summer here, so So we get a little bit of riding, not as much as you guys down there, but yeah, that's what I do for a living. I've been doing that for, now 25 years. So.
Wow, very exciting. That is awesome.
Yeah.
That's I gotta believe that you are. We've done 340 plus episodes. I believe you are the first motorbike company owner ever to come on the show before. So we are breaking new ground tonight on the show. It's fantastic. Well, one of the things that career that you've chosen allows you to do is to play in a lot of Dynasty leagues. Do you think as you make the transition from Dynasty over to redraft now, as here we're entering July this weekend, do you think that helps or hinders your ability to construct good redraft teams once the rookie drafts are behind you?
I think it helps me anyways. I think it can hinder some owners, but I think it helps me a lot. I mean, going into the redrafts, the rookies really well. As long as you don't overvalue them, that can be kind of a hindrance for sure. But as long as you don't overvalue them too much and fall in love with them too much, I think it helps kind of rank them and you can see where the sleepers might lie, kind of thing, before everybody else does.
One of the sleepers last year, and a guy that went undrafted, and it depended upon when you drafted last year, went undrafted in some leagues. It was Alex Collins, a guy who was running in Arkansas with Jonathan Williams. I can't remember if he got drafted or not, but then I know he was at some point was out there, and Seattle signed him to their practice squad. Yeah. Then he goes to Baltimore. We know what happened after that. He was very, very good for fantasy owners in 2017. But as we shift now to this season, to 2018, what do you make of Collins? Is he a guy that you would target as a good value right at that 4 or 5 turn where he's going? Or is that still too high for your taste for Collins?
No, I think that's good value still. He's been creeping up the boards, I think, right now. But honestly, if you look at his stats, I think for rushers that carried over 200 yards or 200 carries last season, he finished third in yards per carry. I think it was 4.6, just behind Ingram and Gurley. So they're a pretty elite company, right? And I know people knock him for not being able to catch the ball, but if you go back, he didn't catch a ball for the first 6 games as he kind of got over to Baltimore. So the little catches he did, the 23 catches he had, if you kind of do the math, it's kind of more closer to 40 catches. I think there will be some improvement there, especially with Woodhead gone. So I know people are worried about Dixon coming back too, but he's coming off injury as well. So I think it's Collins' show. They didn't draft a running back, so I kind of like his value a lot there.
I don't want to use hyperbole too much, but I'm trying to think back to an offense like Baltimore's this year where there were so many unknowns, coming into the fantasy season. They basically revamped their entire receiving core. They can't seem to get a consistent tight end to produce ever since, maybe like the Todd Heap, Shannon Sharp days. And then they draft Lamar Jackson in the first round, and we don't know how long the leash is on Joe Flacco. There are so many unknowns on that Baltimore offense this year. You obviously like Collins at the 4 or 5 turn. Are there any other Ravens that you would count on, that you would target, that you think can be an asset this year outside of Collins, or is it an offense that you probably are going to be avoiding for the most part?
No, I think there's going to be some. I like Crabtree this year. I think Crabtree should have a decent season, even if there is question marks and stuff like that. And if they're behind, obviously they're going to be throwing a ton. And with Crabtree being the only top receiver there, I think he should do well. I think there's going to be a few waiver wire gems from Baltimore. It's just picking the right one, right? The rookie tight ends might do something there. But that's kind of also why I feel Collins might catch a few more balls. I think maybe Jared Allen, is involved a lot like he was last year, catching the ball as well. So they're going to throw the ball. They always do. We got to figure out who too.
Yeah, exactly. And that's, unwrapping that riddle and solving that riddle is going to be key to a lot of championships this year if you can get the right value at the right price. We're talking with Jason Steeves, my co-host on the High Stakes Fantasy Football Hour this evening, a man who is approaching $250,000 in career winnings in his high stakes career. And part of your career, Jason, I would assume that there has been rookie running backs that have helped you into some very successful fantasy seasons. tell the listeners why they shouldn't be afraid of drafting a rookie running back early, even if it is one in the first round, like Saquon Barkley this year.
Yeah, I mean, I think Barkley's the real deal. I mean, sometimes you got to take risks. I mean, another thing about these guys are their fresh legs. They have no mileage really other than college on their legs, so there's less chance of them getting hurt over the old veterans and stuff like that. So Barkley is the one that stands out this year in the first round. But from all the hype and and I watched him in Penn State there, I do believe he is the real deal. Is he creeping up maybe a little too early? Maybe. But he's probably worth a first-round pick in my opinion. The other guys coming on, I mean, guys, I think he'll be good in Washington for sure. And then, some other early picks. Obviously, Royce Freeman might be a nice sleeper, but he's kind of creeping up a little too early now. But
I hope the listeners like rookie running backs, because we will be revisiting this topic over the next 50-plus minutes with Geis, with Freeman, with Nick Chubb as well. This is definitely something that I want to talk to you a little bit more about. Before we get to that, what's the opposite of a young running back? An old receiver. Julian Edelman. He's suspended for the first four games of the year. The whatever it was, it wasn't necessarily a PED. It was some sort of foreign substance that they don't know what it is. Of course, there's always a chance he could get that reduced or overturned. I'm not holding my breath on it. So given what we know now, how do you handle Julian Edelman in FFPC drafts right now, Jason, if you're drafting Julian Edelman right now in drafts is going in that mid-7th round? Is that a good spot for him?
Yeah.
Or how would you handle him?
I think that's more than fair. I mean, I think you're getting obviously Brady's favorite target there. 7th, 8th round. I mean, you're getting probably a wide receiver 2 there when he is playing. So I think it's decent value there. If you've left your receivers a little too long, he could definitely fill in nicely. So I like Edelman's value right now. Wish he was falling a little bit later, but I think he'll definitely perform for sure.
Yeah, I kind of wonder, as far as his ADP and how it's going to change, if it changes at all over the next 2 months. I mean, is it something where he slips a little further? Does it go up a little bit? Does it remain the same? He's an interesting guy to look at right now. And I think that what's really compelling to me, his ADP currently is the 706. The next receiver after him at the 712, it's Chris Hogan. So you have both of those Patriots receivers right there. Conceivably, you could get both of them. It's certainly possible. I don't know how likely it is, or if you would advise people drafting in a best ball format to get both Edelman and Hogan. But if you did, Jason, I mean, that's 2 valuable pieces of that New England passing game that you will get for the entire season. And, take away Edelman out of the first 4 games, well, you should be getting some Hogan production there if you were to double up on both of those guys.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I think obviously Hogan, a little bit earlier before Edelman's suspension was a lot further down, so he's definitely creeped up quite a bit there. But if you can land both in best ball, Patriots, they always seem to score. So it's good value for sure.
We touched on your dynasty teams earlier, and I myself included, as far as being a dynasty player and a redraft player, I get so excited for the rookie drafts, flip-flop and picks and players and jockeying for position in the rookie drafts, and that's all fine and good. But then, sort of by like the end of May, I think the dust has sort of settled on what my team's going to look like, whether I'm competing, whether I'm building, whether I'm rebuilding. And I kind of, switch into redraft mode, and I sort of ignore my dynasty teams until I need to, place those first bids of the season in the preseason, or until I need to set my first lineup. With you managing as many dynasty teams as you do, is there a way to take advantage of this quote-unquote dead period of dynasty right now? I mean, are you still slinging offers out there? Are you trying to load up on picks for 2019 that you can get maybe at a good price right now? How do you treat your dynasty teams during the latter part of the summer?
Yeah, no, I'm always working on my dynasty teams, maybe too much for sure. My wife definitely hates me for doing it, but I'm always sending offers. never mind picking up picks for sure, because obviously our roster is over. We're over roster limit right now, so we got to cut at some point. So if you can do it now before it's August and where we have to really cut, this is the time to do it. The only problem is a lot of people are focusing on redraft, so trying to get a lot of answers right now is not the easiest for sure. But if I can land definitely some early 2019 picks for some of the guys that are getting hyped right about now, it's not a bad way to do it for sure.
Yeah, and you mentioned it with the roster cut down too. At this point, when nobody's under the roster crunch and you can sort of let your roster balloon up, I think it's interesting to try to get ahead of that curve to try to flip some of these players that you think might see their value go down in the upcoming season, and flip them for a pick, and then that way it's somebody else's problem, or maybe it's not their problem at all because they don't have that many players to cut down on. But even if you're not getting like a first-round pick, but flipping a top 35, top 40 receiver for a second-round pick, I mean, that's something. And then you can use those picks to sort of compound and make a decent offer to move up in the rookie draft next year. I think getting ahead of the curve and dealing these guys before you have to cut them and before everybody else is cutting players in your league, I think that's the way to do it right now.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it's all we have for value during the season when you don't want to trade your roster is these picks. So if you're going to be in the hunt and if you can get some early picks now, those picks can actually buy someone you might need down the stretch next year or during the season there. So yeah, I do try to get ahead of the game that way for sure.
And that's part of the reason why you've been so successful. Let's talk about a couple of rookie receivers last year for the Tennessee Titans, Corey Davis, Taywan Taylor. They probably should be taking another step forward. I know I like Corey Davis. There's a lot of people out there. The buzz is growing for Taywan Taylor to really make his impact on that Titans passing game. Rashard Matthews obviously looks like a very solid receiver and a trusted target of Marcus Mariota. When you look at Tennessee bringing in Dion Lewis, who obviously is a skilled pass catcher, is Delanie Walker maybe in for a fantasy letdown this season with all these young guys expected to take the step forward? Or do you think his value is still largely unaffected and he's going to be the Delanie Walker we've come to expect and see over the past few years?
I mean, kind of a bit of both. I honestly think there will be a little bit of letdown, but it won't be much. I think he'll still catch his 55 to 60 balls this year. I mean, he's not a 2015 Delanie Walker of 94. I mean, last year I think he had 74 catches, 75 catches. So there will be, I think, a slight letdown for sure. I think Dion Lewis will eat into some of that for sure, and same with Rashard Matthews and Taylor and obviously Davis. But he only scored 3 touchdowns last year. So, I mean, even if his catches do go down, I think maybe his touchdowns could go up. So I think, I think he's a solid play at tight end where he's going. And, I don't think it'll be too big a letdown this year anyways.
Yeah, and I'm kind of with you. You look at where he's going right now in FFPC drafts as far as the tight ends are concerned. You have Evan Engram, Jimmy Graham, Greg Olsen, Zach Ertz, Travis Kelce, Rob Gronkowski all going ahead of him. So you're looking, I mean, if you're drafting Delanie Walker, he's the 7th tight end off the board, and he's going in the early 5th. I mean, that feels about right. Certainly Kyle Rudolph going right around that same spot. You could go, I mean, that's kind of just whatever you're most comfortable with there. But I think Walker is going to be fine. It's not like he showed signs of age. At least I don't think he showed signs of age last season. I think that he's still a valued part of what Tennessee wants to do and how they take that next step forward in trying to get to the AFC Championship game and eventually the Super Bowl. So I think Delanie Walker, as far as 2018 goes, I think you can still count on him as a top 10 tight end at a minimum, as long as his health dictates that. Jason Steeves is our co-host on the High Stakes Fantasy Football Hour tonight. You have been in the FFPC Off the Grid the last few seasons. You are a former champion of that league, Jason. Now, the Off the Grid, for anybody who's not familiar with, you're basically using real money to bid on your first-round pick, like where you pick in the first round and then where you pick in the second round. So if we could apply that logic of, okay, where do I want to pick this year in like a standard FFPC main event or Football Guys draft, if you were looking at targeting a specific spot in the first round, Jason, where do you think it would be? Where would you like to pick if you could pick anywhere?
Yeah, I might not want to give up too much because I might still enter it, but it depends on where the money is. I guess. I mean, last year there was a huge drop off in money after the first couple picks, and so there was value, after at pick 3 or 4 or whatever. If not to spend not any money, 9 to 12. I like where some of these guys are falling, and then you got the turn as well. Or I guess you don't have the turn off the grid, but Hopkins and Beckham and Hunt are kind of right around there. Those are pretty good values for spending, maybe $100 or even 10 on that kind of pick. But even 5 and 7, depending on how cheap they get, with obviously Elliott and David Johnson and Antonio Brown, you can't go wrong there. I don't think I'd spend the full amount this year, that's for sure.
Yeah, how have you typically treated that in the past? Like, what has been sort of your experience? Have you gone expensive on a first, one of the first few picks, or have you just kind of laid in the weeds and just paid little for one of the few spots that were left?
Yeah, I've tried to do it both ways. I mean, believe it or not, I've had more success spending the money for sure, because there is the skins every week, and so I think having obviously the top player definitely helps with the last couple of years has been Bell or whatever, Gurley. But when they're putting up 30 points in 1 week, definitely you might have a better chance at the skin. And then you get that first pick in the third round as well. But I've done it both ways, but I have had more success spending money. But there is some good players at the end of the board this year, so I think maybe this year I'd leave it.
I think, and to that point, just thinking out loud, I think that this year's first round is among the more deeper or the more deep first rounds that I can remember. I don't, it always seems like the top couple of picks, everybody always wants those, and then there's a drop off. Last year it was David Johnson and Le'Veon Bell. Those are the two guys that everybody had to have, and I think this year, typically what I've seen is, 90%, 95% of the drafts I've commissioned online, it's been Bell or Gurley, or Bell and Gurley, 1 and 2. Every once in a while you see a Barkley up there, or David Johnson. Most of the time it's been Bell or Gurley. But even, looking deeper into the first round, you alluded to some of these guys that are slipping. I mean, Leonard Fournette, Dalvin Cook, Kareem Hunt, these bell cow type running backs that you can get at the back end of the first round. It used to be those guys would go up the early part of the first round and those receivers would slip, but you could still get these, 20, 25 touch running backs deep in the first round this year, much deeper than you could in years past.
Oh yeah, exactly. I agree with you 100%. The first round is more solid than it's been in a long time for sure. There's not as many question marks. I'm sure there will be a couple guys that unfortunately don't perform, but it seems like there's not too many misses, that's for sure.
Yeah, I'm with you. I mean, there's going to be busts. We got to figure out who they're going to be at this point. But right now, man, I like a lot more players in the first round than I dislike for sure. Let's get a couple of emails here for you, Jason, that came in. The first one is from Dan in Arlington, Texas, and he writes, "Hi, Jason. What's been the key for you to sustaining success in high-stakes dynasty leagues? Thanks." That is Dan in Arlington, Texas. Thank you for the email, Dan. You've certainly had a lot of success with the FFPC dynasty leagues at a minimum, Jason. But you look at how you've been able to be so successful year in and year out. What do you think the key has been for you to, maybe not winning the league every year, but cashing or going deep into the playoffs?
Yeah, I think honestly, it's trades come into a big factor. As I trade a lot, and I'm willing to listen, right? I think that's a big thing. Someone might offer you something, and it might not be a good trade when you look at it first, but, they're asking for a player. There's always counters. So being open to trading is a big thing. And then, I think willing to trust some veterans as well. Like everybody wants the rookies, I understand. It's good to build a young core, but those rookies, like we talked about Edelman earlier, and Fitzgerald. I mean, he's been around forever. I think I bought Fitzgerald a couple of years ago for a fourth. It's you trusting those veterans too, and trading for picks, and it's just been kind of a little bit of success that way, I think.
Have you had, I don't know if you've even done this or had the opportunity to, but have you received any offers or made any offers for Larry Fitzgerald for this upcoming season? I mean, we're kind of assuming that it is his last year. Certainly he could change his mind and go deeper in that. But what would you be willing to pay for Fitz, given his track record for success, the fact that he doesn't look like he's lost much, and he should be in for another big season? What would you be willing to give up for Fitz, even if it's only a year's worth of his stats?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's why I accumulate picks. But I mean, I'd probably, if my team was hurting at receiver, I'd definitely give up a second. I wouldn't have a problem doing that there. Most owners don't want to pay for the old veteran and stuff like that, but at the end of the day, a second's just as much gamble, and then at least you know what you're getting with Fitz. So if they're going to help you win money and keep you near the top, I definitely would pay a second, no problem.
Other email here I want to get to. This is from Bill in Westerville, Ohio. How does your approach change in pros versus Joes, given that it is a 28-round best ball than if you were drafting in a 20-round managed league like the Football Guys contest? Good luck this season, Jason. That is Bill in Westerville, Ohio. Yeah, this is always a compelling question for me. I like to ask people how they switch their strategy up. But when you're drafting in pros versus Joes, in a league that you're, to set it and forget it, you got to obviously make sure you don't get skunked on defenses and kickers, and make sure you have adequate depth. But does your strategy change all that much between that and a 20-round managed league?
Yeah, I think it changes a bit. I mean, obviously running backs are a lot more important because you just can't count on injuries and stuff or you're going to get some injuries. So definitely the first few rounds, you're targeting the running backs a lot more, and you don't want to be short on those. I mean, you can always get the flyers for receivers and stuff like that, but I feel like you have to lock down, at least one, if not two, good starting running backs for sure.
That's such a key to victory too. If you can get two guys that remain relatively healthy and relatively involved with their offenses, all season, that's such an advantage if you can hit on those two running backs early on. I am with you on that. I don't know if you saw this, Jason, but Darren Armani, who we love, puts together the Pros versus Joes competition every year from FantasyMojo.com. He released all the divisions and the draft order for all the Pros versus Joes competitions this year, and I believe you are in draft number 6. It is the final one on July 31st. You pulled the 3 pick in that draft. You're drafting right in between Shane Hallam from FakePigskin.com, another FFPC player, and then Scott Barrett from Pro Football Focus. He is going to be drafting 4. So you look at what you're doing there at 3. And, if you're not comfortable, don't say it. But I'm assuming Gurley and Bell go 1 and 2. Who are you looking at 3 in this draft?
Well, yeah, I mean, I probably lean towards Elliott there, I guess. Yeah, I mean, it's close. I mean, David Johnson, we'll see how he does with his wrist injury and stuff like that in contract. But yeah, I mean, I'm a big Elliott fan. So even with the Cowboys not having too many receivers, I think they'll definitely give him the ball a lot. So.
See, Elliott is an interesting guy this year because you make the argument like he is the offense in Dallas this year. It will go through him. They will run him into the ground, 25 touches a game, no problem, because they're going to need Hearns or Gallup or somebody to step forward there. I have been shying away from Elliott because of that reason. Now, I know that the offensive line there is stellar. They just signed Zach Martin to that insane contract, obviously, and he earns it, so that they do have the guys up front to create the holes for Elliott, and Elliott is certainly a talented player. I just get nervous that at some point the pressure of carrying that offense by himself is going to collapse on him, and he's just going to, not going to be able to sustain that kind of success over the course of the season. Now, I guess you can make the same case with David Johnson, but he does have fits there too. So I'm just, that's kind of where I'm at on Elliott. But you take the opposing view of like, look, he's their meal ticket. He's going to get a ton of volume, and that's why you take him at 3.
It's close. I mean, it's close. I haven't heard too much from David Johnson yet. So, I mean, I definitely, he'd be definitely right up there with Elliott. So, but yeah, we'll see how it goes. I'm sure Dallas has something to say. I wouldn't even be surprised if Brian signs back. Who knows?
Yeah. Boy, wouldn't that be a story? And you will have basically more than a month to decide since you're not drafting until July 31st. So certainly things can change, in the next few weeks for sure. I want to get to the news and notes around the NFL. Before I do that, give us a guy that you're actually going to be staying away from in the first couple rounds of drafts this year because you think he could be a bust. And then a guy that you think might be flying under the radar, not a lot of people are talking about him, a guy who could be making some noise that's not really going to the middle or latter parts of drafts.
Yeah, I don't know if I have one guy that I'm staying away from in the first couple of rounds. I mean, maybe Freeman a bit, but I mean, he's also kind of fallen into the third round too, or Jordan Howard, maybe someone like that. But I'm not really staying away from it. If there's value, there's value. There are definitely guys that I do feel that are going to be value in some of the later rounds. Like, I mean, I think T.Y. Hilton getting luck back. I think he could easily bounce back. I mean, I think he only had 50 catches or 58 catches or something like that last year. I mean, he had 91 catches with luck the year before and 1,400 yards. So I think, honestly, T.Y. Hilton, getting him in the fourth round or late third, I think there's value there. I think Amari Cooper could bounce back. I like Hilton more, but there's another one. And then there's guys like Crowder. I mean, in the 11th, I think he's going in 10th, 11th, somewhere like that. Alex Smith isn't really a deep ball passer. He likes to find his receivers, and he could easily be a nice PPR guy for sure.
Yeah, I'm with you on Crowder, and I feel like he's going to be a guy that is going to start creeping up. We're hearing some positive reports out of Washington about the relationship and the chemistry that Alex Smith has already formed with Jamison Crowder. I think he is a fantastic value in the double-digit rounds, and honestly, even if he ascends up to the 7th or 8th round, I still think that that's a guy I'd be looking at in those rounds there to kind of complete or round out my receiver core. So you and I are of one mind on Jamison Crowder for sure. Thanks to Football Guys, Roto World, and our producer and mutual friend Rob for tonight's rundown. Let's talk about Austin Seferian-Jenkins. Jason, according to Mike Kay from FirstCoastNews.com, ASJ was actually open quite a bit during the non-contact practices with Jacksonville and made a lot of impressive catches with Blake Bortles and for the Jaguars in the OTAs, in the minicamp that Jacksonville held already this season. I think back to 2017, I had Austin Seferian-Jenkins on a few teams, and he kind of drove me crazy because he was putting out good games. He'd score touchdowns, and then those touchdowns would be reviewed and taken back, or they wouldn't have happened because there was a penalty on the play. So it was extremely frustrating. The talent is there. It seems like he's developing some pretty good chemistry with Blake Bortles there. And you look at what they did in this offseason. They let Allen Robinson go. They signed Marquise Lee. They didn't really draft anybody that high. I mean, they signed Dante Moncrief as well. But there's going to be an opportunity for Seferian-Jenkins there, and he's going in the 10th round of FFPC drafts right now. Jason, to me, that there's a value in getting him as your second tight end in the 10th round. What do you think about ASJ and his prospects this season?
Yeah, I agree with you. I mean, these tight ends, like he's going in the 10th round, and you're getting a point and a half per reception in these leagues. I mean, it could easily be a nice flex as your wide receiver or tight end number 2. Yeah, I mean they have a lot of young receivers, Westbrook and Lee and Keane Cole. But yeah, I think definitely there's a good chance for Jenkins to put up 50 catches easily.
And like you alluded to, tight end premium league. I mean, that is a good way to spend a 10th round pick, or even 11th if you can get him that late as well. You touched on Royce Freeman earlier, and I want to talk about what Bucky Brooks from NFL.com had to say about him in a report earlier this week. He says that Freeman actually has a chance to do, quote, Kareem Hunt type things. And obviously, if that's the case, those are good type things as long as they're on the football field. Brooks says Freeman is one of his favorite sleepers in the 2018 NFL draft, and he is actually going to have a chance. I mean, he will compete for the starting job. He's going to have a chance to be the lead running back for Denver, who has publicly said they want to be more of a run-based team, which I guess, a lot of teams say that in the offseason. It's one thing to say it and another thing to actually do it. But they do have the defense, behind that team to really, have sort of a ground and pound type team where they would be able to ride a guy like Freeman. He's going to be going up against Devontae Booker this year. But your thoughts on Royce Freeman? It seemed like from when we were talking before, you actually kind of liked him as a sleeper running back who might be like a top 20 guy this year.
Yeah, I do like him. I like him a fair bit. The only thing is, looking at some of the draft boards now, all of a sudden he's kind of creeping up almost too much. There's still, unfortunately, Booker there. They did say earlier in the season, at the beginning of the year, that they were going to run Booker and give him a good chance. So I feel like in some ways it's going to be a two-headed monster, but I do feel Freeman's the better back for sure. So I think we'll see a lot of Freeman, but maybe early. It might be one of those guys that you might have to wait a little bit.
We'll get to more on the Broncos running it. We have an email about that later on, and we'll talk a little bit more about it then. But let's talk about another guy that you had already brought up, the running back from LSU, the rookie, Darius Geis. ESPN's John Keim says that Geis is going to have a big impact from the get-go, and he actually said it'd be surprising if anyone other than him opened the season as the Redskins' starting running back. Now, he slipped in the draft. That could have been because of off-the-field concerns, character concerns, what have you. But there is no doubting Darius Geis' talent. He looked the part after he took over for Leonard Fournette for the Bayou Bengals last season. And you look at, where he is going in drafts right now. If you wanted to get him, you could wait until the middle part or the end of the third round and get him on your team. Now, to me, I was never a huge Geis guy, Jason. I didn't draft him in any of my dynasty leagues, and maybe I'm wrong there. To me, middle part to the end part of the third round for a guy who I'm not sure is going to catch a lot of passes this year with Chris Thompson still there, that seems a little rich for my taste for Geis. What are your thoughts on him?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, he was a very good running back in college. I was kind of the same way on my dynasty team. Didn't take him whatsoever, but I have heard good things on him. Say there's a very good chance that he's going to start the ball and he's going to run it. So I mean, Chris Thompson. Unfortunately, he's not going to get any catches. I mean, with Chris Thompson there, that's for sure. They're going to play him quite a bit. So yeah, I feel like the early third is definitely too early. Late third, I could maybe try it, but I do like guys like, I feel like Geis, Collins, they're probably pretty close, and if you can get Collins around later, I mean, that might be your answer right there, right? So.
Yeah, and I mean, there's other guys that are going after him. I mean, like, I'm not saying I necessarily like these guys head and shoulders better or even better at all, but like Kenyon Drake, Rashad Penny are both going after him.
Yep.
We talked about that fourth round. It's littered with running backs there. Ronald Jones, Mark Ingram, Sony Michel, Derrick Henry, and then Collins, Jay Ajayi, and then Royce Freeman going right after that in the early fifth too. So to me, I don't know if the disparity between Geis and the rest of those guys represents like a round and a half of value. I might go with a receiver, or, certainly you go with a Greg Olsen, Jimmy Graham, Evan Ingram if you want to get a tight end there as well. So I don't know. I probably will not have Geis on a whole lot of drafts this year. That said, if he makes a couple of big plays in preseason, I might have to reevaluate, if he's demonstrating it on the field. We'll see what happens. There's a ways to go. We'll see what the reports are coming out of training camp. But, yeah, the fact that Chris Thompson's there and as far as we know he's healthy, that is really going to dip into his pass-catching potential. Nick Chubb appears to have a pretty good shot at getting the bulk of the every down carries, even early in the season, according to Pat McManaman, who writes for ESPN. Nick Chubb is going to be contending with Carlos Hyde and Duke Johnson, who we'd imagine Duke Johnson is going to be the third down guy there. But if Chubb really takes the ball and runs with it, maybe he becomes the third down or the three down guy there for as long as he's healthy. Nick Chubb is a guy that we haven't really talked about as much as rookie running backs as we've touched on so far. Nick Chubb not going until the early 8th round. I mean, right, we're talking about Carlos Hyde, Marshawn Lynch, Rex Burkhead territory. To me, I mean, I know it's a crowded backfield, Jason, but the unknown there and the upside and the 8th round, boy, I like Nick Chubb at that spot.
Yeah, in the 8th round, I mean, you can't go wrong. I think getting someone like this, he could easily steal a job, the last 6 games into it for sure. I'm a little bit worried, honestly, about his first few weeks for sure. I mean, I don't think they signed Hyde to $5 million a season for, not to use him. So I think he will be involved. But if Chubb definitely is the quicker, faster back, I don't think Cleveland at this point is scared to push him aside. I mean, he's not probably going to get his catches, but that offense could be scary. I mean, they got some of the best catchers in the league, that's for sure. So, I mean, it could definitely open up things for the running game.
Yeah, it definitely could, and we'll have to see what how that plays out. But I think getting to Cleveland again, we talk about these riddles you need to unwrap and get right if you want to win a title this year. The Cleveland running game is something that you're gonna need to hit on, or at least get it. Know who to avoid if you're not going to pick the right guy there, or maybe just avoid it entirely and go a different way. But I think Nick Chubb in the 8th round represents a value right now. Shifting over to the tight end position, George Kittle actually added some muscle mass during the offseason, and he's hoping that that's going to prevent some of the soft tissue injuries that he had throughout the 2017 campaign. He's also been practicing, and this is good. I mean, this is something that you would think you'd work on in high school and college, but he's working on catching the ball away from his body when he's been working out with Jimmy Garoppolo and C.J. Beathard. This is all in Curtis Pachelka's report from the San Jose Mercury News. He was a 5th-round pick out of Iowa, which is kind of becoming tight end U right now as far as college football goes. But he's a 5th-round pick last year. And George Kittle this year, as far as his ADP in drafts, it's not insanely high. You are looking at, I just had it up here, and now I can't find it. Here it is, 704 in drafts. He's going before the likes of Jack Doyle, but going right after Jordan Reed and Trey Burton in the 6th round. So George Kittle, I mean, I don't know if I would advise him as your number 1 tight end, but certainly if you wait on the position and you're not drafting a tight end until the 7th round, that's not a bad way to do it with an up-and-coming quarterback, a smart offensive mind running the team in San Francisco, and Kyle Shanahan. Your thoughts on George Kittle and how good he could be this year, Jason?
Yeah, I think he kind of falls in line with maybe a little bit more upside than ASJ for sure. I mean, Jimmy Garoppolo's got to have some sort of security blanket there. And, other than Garcon and the deep ball to Goodwin, I mean, Kittle's your man. This is going to be his 2nd season, and tight ends also get better as they kind of progress here. So I do feel like he could have some pretty good value in the 7th for sure right now.
Yeah, I mean, you look at the receivers that are there. Pierre Garcon's, not a spring chicken anymore, and he's coming off a season-ending neck injury that put him on IR. Marquise Goodwin was sort of, just a speed guy for the bulk of his career, and then he sort of came on, in the middle of the last season. And maybe he can sustain that, maybe he can't. But George Kittle, I mean, the opportunity is there, and it's not like they draft Dante Pettis in the 2nd round, and they're talking about using him a lot on special teams. So I'm not sure what threat he poses to Kittle's target share, at least in his rookie year. So I think there's some upside with Kittle there as well. And like I agree with you, certainly more than Austin Seferian-Jenkins. Let's get into to fantasy feedback here tonight, Rob, and answer some emails.
If you've got a question for Eric Dave or tonight's guest, send them a tweet at HSFF Hour on Twitter. Email the show at highstakesfantasyfootball@gmail.com. Post it in the chat room during the broadcast. Hashtag your tweet with HSFF or just smack Eric in the head. That's highstakesfantasyfootball@gmail.com or at HSFF Hour on Twitter.
First email tonight, ladies and gentlemen, comes to us from Jim in Fort Smith, Arkansas. He writes, "What's up, Bulky and not Dave?" Saw an interesting stat from Draft Sharks. about one of Dave's favorite whipping boys, Randall Cobb. He has 7 top 30 wide receiver finishes and 6 top 22 finishes in 8 years, but is not being picked until the 36th receiver off the board in the 9th round of FFPC drafts. He's still only 27. So what gives? Why isn't he being drafted higher? Happy 4th, guys. Thank you for the email, Jim in Fort Smith, Arkansas. This is interesting. Dave has never been the biggest Randall Cobb fan, Jason, and I feel like I've spent time defending Cobb on this show quite a bit. No Jordy Nelson now in Green Bay, and you would think that Cobb is the de facto number 2 receiver, maybe number 3 target option behind Jimmy Graham and Devontae Adams in that offense. But, you look at what Cobb's been able to do in the league thus far, and the fact that, you can get him in the 9th round, there's some upside there. There's some value there. What kind of season do you think is in store for Mr. Randall Cobb?
It depends on this mysterious surgery that he had there. But I think he'll be solid. I do feel, honestly, that he might be still number 3 there, unfortunately, with Jimmy Graham there. But I think he could definitely have an uptick in yards from the last couple of seasons. He broke onto the scene, and I think he disappointed a lot of owners over the last 2-3 years, and that's why he's probably slipping. It's tough to you get kind of a love-hate relationship with these players sometimes, and you just can't get away from that. So, but I think he could have definitely value. I still would like to see maybe later on and see if Green Bay is happy with their wide receiver corps. See if they maybe do look into picking up someone towards the beginning of the season. That might be might change things.
And I'll say this too about Cobb. You brought it up. This the fact that he was spotted in a walking boot by a reporter from the Milwaukee Journal-Sentinel. And we don't. He wouldn't even. The fact that he didn't say he had surgery on it, or wouldn't say whether he did, to me suggests that he probably there's a decent shot that he actually did have surgery on it. And he says he's going to be ready for week 1 of the season. I've seen him dip his value dip in drafts right now from that early 9th round to the late 9th, the 10th, and in some cases even the early 11th round. He's going there. So I think that it might get a little bit worse before it gets better for Randall Cobb as far as his draft capital goes right now. The thing is, right where he's going now, I like Pierre Garçon there. I like Cooper Kupp there. I like Jamison Crowder there. Significantly more than Randall Cobb. And I feel like as long as those receivers are there, I'm going to choose those guys over Cobb right now. He's got to drop a little bit further for me in order for him to find his way onto my team. Let's move on to Caleb in Louisville, Kentucky. Hey, gents. Joe Mixon continues to climb up FFPC boards, and it seems like you've had a lot of varying opinions on him so far this season for your guests on the show. But would you take him in the late 2nd or early 3rd if you were drafting now? Thank you for the email. That is Caleb in Louisville, Kentucky. Maybe I'll see him at the KFFSC this year. So you look at Joe Mixon, Jason, and this is a guy who has really ascended up draft boards to the end. I think he's a 212 is his ADP right now. And he actually has gone as early as the late 1st. So he is certainly ascending. Joe Mixon, can you still get value for him? Is that still a good spot to be taking him at that 2-3 turn?
I don't know. I wish I loved the Cincinnati offense more. I just don't. And then you need obviously a good offense for a good running back. That's the only issue. So I kind of feel like he might be a little bit overvalued right now. If I'm wrong about Cincinnati, then that's one thing. But I just feel like if they're behind in game, obviously, what do they get away from? The run game, right? So if they're losing a lot of games, which I think they could be, Mixon might feel those kind of stats go down.
I know that it's tempting because they've improved, or at least they made the attempt to improve the offensive line. You'd like to think that no Jeremy Hill there means more opportunities for Mixon. And the fact that they switched offensive coordinators, whatever it was, 4 or 5 games into last season, and that really freed Mixon up to do some damage. And I don't think he really he didn't explode like I thought he would have. But he did put up some pretty good games, and whether or not that continues into 2018 is up for debate. I'd like to think it would. I also like to think that I will find somebody else at that 2-3 turn rather than Mixon there.
Yeah.
If I was gonna go like if I wanted to go crazy and not take Bell or Gurley or somebody like that and take an Antonio Brown or DeAndre Hopkins early, then I could see Mixon as my number one running back in the second round. I just don't. I feel like I'd be more comfortable letting somebody else take him.
Yeah, I agree.
Mark in Springfield, Mass, with no Graham and Richardson in Seattle. Why isn't Tyler Lockett getting more love in drafts right now? Thank you for the email. Mark, Tyler Lockett, I can tell you, is not getting a ton of love, like Mark is alluding to. 1405 is where he is going in drafts right now. And to me, it's not like Seattle has like a Darren Sproles, Chris Thompson, Theo Riddick type pass catcher in the backfield. They don't have a prolific pass-catching tight end. They do have a target hog in Doug Baldwin as their number one receiver. But the fact that Seattle's defense shouldn't be what it was the last few years, the fact that they might be playing from behind a little bit more than they've been accustomed to, wouldn't you think that the number two receiver, if he is the number two receiver on this team, would be going a little bit higher than the 14th round? I love Tyler Lockett in the 14th round at that point, Jason.
Yeah, I mean, the 14th round, I mean, obviously, he's a guy with good upside for sure. I mean, I don't know if he is number two. That's the only thing. I think that's why he's slipping. I mean, they did bring in Brandon Marshall, see where he's at. So he could easily be number two there. So, yeah, but if Lockett actually steals number two job, he could definitely pull up some numbers. I mean, the last couple of years, he's only averaged about 45 catches or so, but he could easily bring it up a few for sure to 55 or so. Definitely got the wheel.
It's interesting, too, is you bring up Marshall. And Jerron Brown, too, is another free agent that they signed up there. Marshall's going in the 25th round of FFPC best ball drafts right now, and Jerron Brown's not going to the 27th. So basically, any receiver not named Doug Baldwin, you can basically have almost at any point in drafts right now. So whoever you believe in, put your money where your mouth is behind that guy, and you'll be able to get him pretty easily. Okay, we alluded to this earlier with the Denver ground game. This is from Brian in Chicago, Illinois. Dear John and Terrell, how do you guys see this Denver running game shaping up, and which guy should I draft in leagues, Freeman or Booker? Thanks so much. Thank you for the email, Brian. Before you answer this, Jason, I will tell you that Royce Freeman's ADP currently is at the 503 in drafts. Devontae Booker is not actually being selected until the 1204. So you're looking at 7 rounds of disparity. So here's the way I'll form this question for Brian. He wants to know Freeman or Booker. I will also throw in, would you advise getting both of them, especially in a best ball draft, or would you avoid it entirely? How do you attack the Denver running game in drafts?
I'd probably honestly avoid it entirely. I feel like, yes, you could back yourself up with Booker at the 12th and get Freeman in the 5th, but there's a lot of guys in the 5th that I'd probably value a little bit more rather than that two-headed monster without knowing anything. So myself, right now, I'd avoid this situation. Booker, if you ended up with Booker in the 12th and you didn't get Freeman, I mean, it's not a bad crapshoot in the 12th round for sure if you do land a starting running back. So
I feel like I've asked this of almost everybody who's come on, and given your skill with Dynasty, I will bring up that I own Emmanuel Sanders and Demaryius Thomas in a few different leagues that I manage. How do you look at their 2018 season with Trevor Siemian out the door and Case Keenum slinging the rock? I mean, they've got to have better years than they did last year. Do you like either? And I own them in Dynasty, but let's frame this as a redraft question. Do you like either of those guys this year? I mean, are they going to find either of those guys going to find their way onto any of your rosters?
Yeah. I mean, I think both will slip like they have been slipping. So I think some will sneak onto my rosters for sure. I think both will improve. I mean, I think Keenum's a far better quarterback than Siemian. I think their offense will get going with a little bit better with Freeman or Booker. So I think everything's improved for sure. They still don't really have a tight end. So, I mean, Sanders and Thomas are definitely going to get the ball. So, yeah, I believe they're going to have a little bit of an uptick for sure. Still a little dicey, but they still both can put up good numbers for sure.
Yeah, and as far as where you can get them, right, I know I keep bringing this up, but I know people will ask, hey, Balky, when can I get these guys? Emmanuel Sanders going at the 8-9 turn of drafts right now in the FFPC, and Demaryius Thomas right at that 4-5 turn. So decent value on them right now, but take that with a grain of salt, given my proclivity to owning them in Dynasty. Final question here tonight, and it is from John in Hayward, California. Hey, Balky and Beavers, from a redraft standpoint, who would you draft first this year, Howard or Njoku? And also, which tight end do you value more in Dynasty? That is John in Hayward, California. Last year was the quote-unquote rookie draft year of the tight end. We saw a lot of them go super early. David Njoku, usually a late first-round pick. O.J. Howard, a mid-first-round pick in FFPC rookie drafts. You look at them, we'll answer the redraft portion of this first, Jason. Which guy do you like better for the 2018 season? Is it O.J. Howard or is it David Njoku?
Yeah, they're close, that's for sure. I probably slightly leave to Njoku, but it's close. I mean, I feel like obviously they signed back Brait for a reason, so I think Cameron Brayden and Howard will kind of split the duties there again, but there's so much more upside to Njoku for sure. So probably slightly more towards Njoku.
And I would imagine if I was if we were doing some sort of dynasty trade and I said, I got too many young tight ends on my team, I'll throw one your way. You can either have O.J. Howard or David Njoku as a throw-in, on this deal or what have you. Which one would you pick for dynasty? Do you like Howard better or Njoku?
I think I like Howard still. Dynasty. But again, it's close. I mean, I think both of them can be great tight ends in the next few years for sure.
What about Go ahead.
Sorry, I just feel like Howard definitely will be on the field a lot more. I mean, he definitely just can pass block a lot better, and I think he'll just get so much more playing time. So I think in the long run, I think he'll be similar to Greg Olsen. So that's kind of why I lean towards Howard.
Let me throw this at you because I just thought of it. What if you're in an FFPC, like a main event or a Footballguys draft or what have you, and you avoid tight end? You're stacking your running backs, you're stacking your receivers, and let's say you have a late 8th round. Your draft. You have we're picking 1 or 2 in the draft or whatever, so you have a late 8th round pick. David Njoku going at the 8-10. On average, and O.J. Howard going at the 8-11. So there's a chance you could actually get both of them. What if you avoid tight end, up until that point in the draft, and then you grab both of them back to back? How sound of a strategy would that be, and utilize those 2 guys as your top 2 tight ends?
Yeah, I mean, that could work. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised. One definitely, so maybe both do. So it's maybe not a bad strategy for sure. And then, I mean, there's always later ones that you can get. If you left all your tight ends, I mean, there is ASJ, and then, I mean, even maybe Ben Watson, really late, back with Drew Brees. So I think that would be a good strategy, getting both those young guys for sure.
Well, listen, I certainly appreciate all the insight that you've brought to the table tonight, Jason. You answered a lot of our listeners' questions. You answered a lot of my questions as well as I'm trying to, get dialed in for the 2018 drafting season. We will definitely wish you good luck in all your leagues, and best of luck to you in Pros versus Joes. We'll be covering your draft live on July 31st on the High Stakes Fantasy Football Hour, seeing if you do end up taking Ezekiel Elliott at 3 or if you go with somebody else. I love, don't feel compelled, but if you want to give us a buzz and make a pick on the air that night, that would be great. I would certainly love to hear from you again. Let us know how the draft is going. I have a feeling you are going to handle it with class and aplomb, and will be, if not dominating, certainly one of the teams to beat in that draft. for sure. So thanks so much for co-hosting with me tonight, man. I really appreciate it. We'll talk again soon.
Okay, thanks a lot, Eric. Thanks for having me.
Jason Steeves, ladies and gentlemen, approaching $250,000 in career winnings in his high-stakes career. And many titles. Hopefully we'll see him in the Off the Grid again this year. We will see him in Pros vs. Joes, and we'll see him drafting live out in Vegas again this year. So awesome stuff from him tonight. What a treat to have him on. I want to thank Jason, the FFPC, Rob, Bryce, and, of course, you. We will be back next Friday, and I have breaking news on this. I just confirmed that our guest next week, Dave, will be back, and we will be talking with Keno Moss. Keno Moss, the co-manager of Eric Young, who is actually going to be, these guys will be drafting in the Pros vs. Joes together. They've won a boatload of main events and Football Guys league titles over the years, and Keno will join the show next week. He just literally just confirmed via email. I just saw on my phone, so that'll be exciting to be able to talk to him. I want to remind everybody not only to register for the main event, but for I have to start keeping, maybe not mental notes, but actually writing this down of what people plan on doing with their Pros versus Joes picks. We have Jason Steeves saying he's probably leaning towards Ezekiel Elliott at the 103 in his draft. We'll have to see if he does that. Also listening to the On the Couch episode with Sigmund Bloom and Mike Tagliere from Mike Tagliere from Fantasy Pros and Sigmund Bloom from Football Guys. Sigmund Bloom will be participating in Pros vs. Joes again this year, and he has the 8 pick, and he said if Rob Gronkowski is out there with that 8th pick, he is taking him there. And I can tell you, his ADP is the 202, and the highest he has gone since the Edelman suspension was announced is the 109. So Sigmund Bloom would be breaking new territory on Rob Gronkowski if he does take him at the 108. So those are the 2 ones I know, and it'll be fun when we get a chance to cover Pros versus Joes. Thanks a lot for listening, everybody. I hope you all have a wonderful and safe 4th of July.
The hottest deals of the summer are coming your way. $8 Wisconsin State Fair tickets are on sale now through June 30th at wistatefair.com. Don't miss other great deals on original cream puffs, bargain books, Spin City Ride and game tickets, and more at wistatefair.com. Hurry, these great savings won't be around for long. Make your day Wonder Fair at the Wisconsin State Fair, presented by U.S. Cellular, August 2nd through the 12th. The hottest deals of the summer are coming your way. $8 Wisconsin State Fair tickets are on sale now through June 30th at wistatefair.com. Don't miss other great deals on original cream puffs, bargain books, Spin City Ride and game tickets, and more at wistatefair.com. Hurry, these great savings won't be around for long. Make your day Wonder Fair at the Wisconsin State Fair, presented by U.S. Cellular, August 2nd through the 12th.